All right, let's dive into a theological puzzle that, I gotta be honest, can really feel like a head-scratcher at first. We're talking about the eternal sonship of Christ. It sounds straightforward, but there's a fascinating paradox hidden inside. So here it is, the central problem. If Jesus is the eternal Son, meaning he's always existed, then how in the world do we make sense of a phrase like, "This day have I begotten thee"? How can someone eternal be begotten or born on a specific day? It just feels like a major contradiction, a real linguistic speed bump. Let's unpack what's really going on here.
Okay, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about eternal sonship, we're talking about the core belief that Jesus didn't become the Son at some point in time, like at his birth in Bethlehem or his baptism. No, the idea is that this is who he has always been, forever, co-eternal with the Father. This is our starting point.
Now, to solve this puzzle, we have to travel back in time. The key isn't in our modern dictionary, it's hidden in the world of an ancient king's coronation. Context is everything here, and our first stop is Psalm 2.
And there it is, the phrase at the heart of our whole conversation. Now, in its original context, this had nothing to do with a biological birth. This was political. This was language used during an enthronement ceremony for a new king in Israel. So what did beget actually mean to that?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The word beget had two very different meanings. In the ancient Near East, it wasn't just about biology, it was also a political term. The day a king took the throne was the day he was officially begotten by God. Not begotten into existence, but begotten into a new role. It was a legal, public declaration of his authority to rule.
Think of it as a covenantal installation. The king was being formally adopted into a father-son relationship with God, making him the official representative on earth. The key takeaway is simple. This language is about a new function, not a new life. It's about a job title, not a birth certificate.
Okay, so now that we have that ancient key in our pocket, let's jump forward to the New Testament and see how the apostles used it. They take this exact coronation logic from Psalm 2 and apply it to the single most important event in Jesus' life, his resurrection.
Yup, in the book of Acts, the Apostle Paul stands up and quotes that exact verse from Psalm 2. But look at what he does. He connects this day specifically to the day Jesus was raised from the dead. For Paul, the resurrection is the ultimate coronation day.
You know, maybe the best way to think about this is like a prince. A prince is born a royal, right? That's his nature, from birth. But he isn't the king until his inauguration day. On that day, he is publicly installed or begotten as the ruler. The ceremony doesn't make him royalty, it declares to the world that he now has the authority to rule. See the difference?
And this is absolutely crucial. The resurrection wasn't the moment Jesus became the Son. He already was. What it did was publicly vindicate his claim. It was the ultimate "I told you so." It was God declaring with power to the whole universe that this was, in fact, his Son.
And Paul doesn't just leave it there. He doubles down on this exact idea in his letter to the Romans. He says Jesus was declared to be the Son of God by the resurrection. Notice that word, declared, not created. It's a public announcement of a reality that was already true.
Now you might think we're done, but this verse actually shows up one more time, and it adds a whole new layer to our understanding. Let's head over to the book of Hebrews, where the focus shifts from being a king to being a priest.
The writer of Hebrews pulls out the exact same verse from Psalm 2, but this time it's not about being a king, it's about Jesus becoming our high priest. So how does this begetting language fit into the role of a priest?
Well, in this context, the begetting is his formal appointment to the office of high priest. And this is a role he couldn't just have as the eternal Son. This job required a human life, a life of perfect obedience, a life that went through suffering. So today marks the moment that his finished work on earth qualified him for this brand new heavenly role.
You could almost think of it as a four-step qualification process for this new job. First, you had to be divine, the eternal Son. Check. Second, you had to become human. Check. Third, you had to be perfected for the role through suffering. Check. And finally, at his ascension into heaven, he was formally appointed, or begotten, into that office.
Okay, so we've looked at ancient kings, we've looked at the resurrection, and we've looked at the priesthood. Now it's time to put all the pieces together. And it all boils down to one simple but really profound distinction. So let's just lay it all out side by side. In Psalm 2, today is about the eternal promise of a king.
In Acts 13, today is the resurrection, the public proof of that kingship. And in Hebrews 5, today is his ascension, the day he officially started his job as our high priest. 3 different historical moments, but they all point to the same idea, a public installation into a new role.
And this, right here, is the absolute key to the whole thing. Understanding the difference between his nature and his vocation. His nature is who he is, eternally. He is the Son. That never changes. His vocation, on the other hand, is about the different roles he stepped into in history. The incarnate Son, the exalted King, the high priest. The begetting on a specific day is always about the start of a new vocation, a new job. It's never about his origin.
Maybe the simplest way to put it this way. Every time the Bible says today, it's basically the date on the calendar for God's cosmic press conference. It's the moment God the Father turned to the entire universe and said, "See? I told you who he was." It's all about declaration, not creation.
And that really leaves us with a final, bigger thought. This principle of separating someone's essential nature from their historical role, of telling the difference between origin and declaration, is such a powerful key for understanding. So how might this change the way we read other ancient texts? It's definitely a question worth thinking about.